Okay, this is our first episode of Get Me Out of Here questions asked and answered. So, the question today that we're going to be dealing with is about pre-existing conditions and healthcare when you move abroad. Now, if you are somebody who is worried that you won't be able to get health coverage, if you're not sure how that works abroad, if you want to move abroad but immediately begin thinking, well, what about my medical needs? I don't know how it's going to be. I'm worried about it. That is what we're here to address today. I think that, a lot of people have the fear, what if I'm not covered? What if I have a medical emergency when I'm living abroad? Or like I already have a pre-existing condition. I'm not sure, how does that work if I move abroad? And I can't speak to every place, but I can tell you some things about here in Portugal, and I can talk to you just about generally things that will relieve your fear. The fear is if I have pre-existing condition, then I can't leave America. I'm stuck here. That is untrue. And the hope, because I'm always trying to encourage you to look at the fear in one hand and the hope in the other. Both are very real. The hope is that you could live, even with a pre-existing condition or medical needs, in a place that feels more humane, where you know that you aren't going to go bankrupt. You are going to be covered, even if you have a pre-existing condition. So that's the hope here. I want you to drop your move abroad questions in the comments, because I will be doing this series called Asked and Answered. A lot of people have asked me about medical care and medical coverage, and so that's why we're starting with that today, because I think it's a real stickler issue for people. Let me know in the comments what is an issue that you're concerned about, and I will do my best to address that in a future video. Here's what Americans assume because we are traumatized by our medical system. People assume that medical insurance is always connected to a job. My Sharpay is shaking. Shake, shake, shake. They assume we Americans often have a really big fear about pre-existing conditions because, you hear in America about people getting denied coverage for pre-existing conditions, etc. So that's something that's just like a deep-seated fear, I think, for Americans. That's not as big of an issue in most of the world as it is in America. For me, I mostly know what this looks like in Portugal, and then I also lived in the Republic of Georgia for a time. So I can speak to those places with a little bit more knowledge, but I will just say most of the world does not function medically like America. America is very unusual in a bad way for medical coverage. So another assumption is if I have a medical crisis, it's going to be a financial disaster. It's going to be bring you to financial ruin, especially if you don't have insurance coverage. These are just assumptions, right? That I think Americans make, and it makes you perhaps afraid to move abroad. What's actually different is that in most places, you can get insurance, medical insurance, separate from your work. It's not tied to your job. And so if you lose your job, you still have medical insurance if you want to have private insurance. Now, of course, there are many places that medical coverage is just guaranteed because you live there. So if you're a resident, you have medical coverage that is covered by people, including yourself as a resident paying taxes. Many places have public options and private options. I'd say most of the world functions that way as well. And so the public options are what I was just referring to. covered by taxes. They usually have like a longer wait, but the care is still really solid in a public option. Then most countries that I'm aware of, definitely here in Portugal. What was it like there's private and public options, I guess, in Georgia as well. But you can get medical care and not break the bank in most places. So, having lived in Europe, I've heard so many accounts of other countries too, where people went there and they had an emergency, and maybe because they were a foreigner and they weren't a resident yet, like they had to pay out of pocket, and they were shocked by the affordability of it in comparison to America. Even just recently in America, my mom had to get an MRI and a PET scan. The PET scan, if she had to pay out of pocket, thankfully she does have insurance, was going to be $4,200. And I think a PET scan, so this is a high-level procedure. Here, if you had to pay out of pocket, that costs around anywhere between 500 and 1,000 euros. That's out of pocket. I mean, it's not cheap, but it's not going to totally annihilate many people. Anyway, I know that finances are relative, but in comparison to America, it's really different. But if you have insurance here or in America, the cost of that is going to come down. I would just say that in most of the world, the before and after insurance costs aren't so huge. There's not a huge difference between what you pay with insurance and what you pay without insurance. Now, similar to America, there's a million different insurance plans that you can get in different countries, and some will cover many more things, or your copay will be less. I just want you to know healthcare is it's affordable and or free in many places in the world. And that depends on whether you're a resident or not, whether you can get free healthcare, but still, even if you can't, it's like humane and affordable on a way different level. Like you're not going to go into permanent debt or bankruptcy because of a medical cost. Okay, so pre-existing conditions. A lot of people are worried about this, and I know 2 people in a family who both have pre-existing conditions. One, I think, is thyroid related. One is related to heart issues, like significant heart issues. Both of them were able to get private insurance here in Portugal, and their family of 4 they have a couple kids, pays less than 275 euro a month for their insurance, and that's with pre-existing conditions. So in my family, we have 7 people. We don't have pre-existing conditions, and ours costs around 300 euros for private insurance here. We can use it at the private hospitals, and some are in network, similar to America, some are out of network, but like a doctor office visit is often around like 19 euros after insurance for us. Or if we go out of network for like a 90 euro appointment, for example, we will get reimbursed in an out of network situation like a third of that, around 30 euros. So I just wanted to, what are you doing? Okay, so if you are worried about healthcare abroad, what I would encourage you to do is look into the information about the one particular country that you're thinking about going to. If you are thinking about slow traveling and moving around countries just with your passport, what you can do is establish a medical base. A lot of people use like Thailand as a medical base, or Singapore if you're in Asia. In Europe, Portugal makes a great base. I think you just have to have a tax number here, which is, you don't have to be a resident to get a tax number here. So if you have a tax number, you can get an insurance plan. And so even if you were maxing out your days, hi, thank you. Thanks. Even if you were maxing out your time spent in the Schengen area, like how long you can spend in Europe just with your passport, that would be in Portugal, or that's all of Schengen. You're gonna have to look that up if you don't know what it is. I'll put it in the description, how to spell it. But Americans just with their passport currently in 2026 are able to be in Europe 90 out of every 180 days. So that's plenty of time to have Portugal as a medical base here in Europe. So if you need like regular scans or you need regular care, you could do that. You could get insurance and you could have a medical base that you just come back to even if you're traveling around. So there's really a lot of options as far as medical care goes. But you're going to want to research if you're looking at a specific country or a specific region, like where medical care might be really good to get, and whether you even need insurance. When we lived in Georgia, I don't think even got insurance because going to get medical care just isn't going to bankrupt you. Maybe we did get insurance, but we weren't there as long as we have been here in Portugal, so we didn't use it that I remember. It was more of like a safety net. So anyway, there's a lot of places in the world where if you're relatively healthy, you might decide not even to get private insurance, but you can really trust that pre-existing conditions aren't going to be the issue that it would be in the US. So I just wanted to encourage you that way. And if you have a lot of questions, you're really in the research stages of moving abroad from the US, I have a workshop and I'll put the link in the description. It's a pre-recorded workshop. People asked me a lot of questions. I shared budgets and my suggestion for what you should do, whether you should try and do an immigration process right away or whether you should travel around or like how that type of thing works. I touched on a lot of like big overview issues of moving abroad, and then it comes with a whole packet of additional resources like timelines for how to prepare for moving, like the things that you should do, 12 months before you want to launch, et cetera, et cetera. If you are in the research stage, it's a really good resource for you. I hope that this medical clarity helped you. Let me know in the comments what questions you have. I would love it if you subscribed. I am not fancy. I am not high pressure. I'm just here to tell you our experience as a family of 7 moving abroad and living in various places in Europe since 2019. And America is stressful, so take a minute at the end of this video to see something beautiful, ground yourself through some breathing, and enjoy Meditation Minute.